03. And we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So Denise is absent. We don't have any added agenda items at this time. Do we have any added agenda items? Okay, and then next on the agenda is the minutes. We have the minutes in your packet from October 9th. Motion to approve the October 9th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. All right, so Courtney's made the motion and Betsy seconded the motion to approve the October 9th, 2024 regular meeting minutes. Were there any other discussion, any edits that anybody saw? There's no further discussion. Motion has been made and seconded. All in favor of approving the minutes? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have public participation. Do you have anyone from the public who would like to speak? Okay, I was gonna say, I think I no, I ever there we go. All right, and next on the agenda, we have the nurse grievance.
Yep, so,
speak to that.
So at this point, we'll have Attorney Chinny come and sit and lead us through the process.
Just for the benefit of the board members that weren't with us the last time we had an employee grievance, which I think is a couple of you. The way the grievance process works is, the union has brought a complaint under their collective bargaining agreement to you. It's gone through previous steps with this, which you'll see and hear about. So at this time, what we'll do is we'll have the union make their presentation. Once they've completed their presentation, we'll then we will recess to a non-meeting, ask all members of the public to leave. And then we will you will have an opportunity to deliberate on the agreement. It's a non-meeting because it's a matter pertaining to collective bargaining, but the evidentiary portion is not. So that has to be an open session. So,
And just for our board members, that actual grievance as filed, there's on pages 4 and 5 of your packet.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jay Bartolome, UPSEU labor representative. I'm filling in for my coworker Sterling Cochran. Just give it a
Thanks.
And mind if I sit?
however you prefer.
Okay, got some papers here. So the union filed a grievance on behalf of our member, Mary Jo Lamas, who's seated behind me. And the allegation was on or about on September 18th, 2024. Mary Jo Lamas was disciplined without just cause. The district provided citation to Article 19 as well as performance. However, the contract does not provide the nurse leader the right to create mandatory work days outside of the student school days. The employee worked required 4 days prior to the start of school and has an additional 5 at her discretion. Additionally, the citation of the vector training is out of context as the employee has completed all training required. And the remedy that we sought was to be made whole and discipline be removed from her file. And I'm going to cite a few articles.
To ask a question.
Yeah.
Did the employee lose any money?
No,
So in what sense is she?
the employee was given a written verbal reprimand and the union would make that removed from her file.
How does that make her not whole? I'm not familiar with looking at a written reprimand in that way. in my experience, somebody who isn't whole because they've lost money.
Right.
I'm not sure I understand.
She, by removing that file, by removing that reprimand, she would be made whole.
Okay, I'm not sure I agree, but I just wanted to hear what you had to say. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to just give you a few items here. One of them is about the vector training. Unfortunately, I have one copy, so I get that. Do you want it or you give it to the chair?
I expect that when you're going to present a grievance to a full board, that you would have copies available to them. So,
I just got this tonight.
well, and I'm not sure how the board is responsible for that. So, I think, Dr. Tudor, I really do think it's better for the board members to have
I agree.
their own copies of the documents. So we'll take a brief recess so that those copies can be made.
Okay.
But I would just for
right.
future reference, we expect the
Thank you.
union to have its own documents. Somebody is. I don't know how to do it. Do you have anything else that you want to submit? Give those out.
I have copies, multiple.
For the us. We'll just, why don't we, since this seemed like you wanted to present this first, let's get a copy so that we can
Okay.
continue the presentation in the order that you want. Okay. Thank you.
We need to make a motion to read this for 5 minutes.
Yes, I think the chair can just declare that we stand in brief recess.
We'll recess for 5 minutes. So we'll just stand in recess for 5 minutes while the copies are made.
That's your standard practice, then that's what we should do.
Pete makes it in this. We don't ever do first.
So if you generally use a motion to do recess, then
So you want me to go ahead?
I think we want, yeah.
Generally, normally.
that's what you're using.
Motion to recess for 5 minutes.
Second.
All right, so motion made by Noreen and seconded by Heather. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, at 7:10, we're gonna recess for approximately 5 minutes while the copies are made. Thank you.
Okay, want to just pause recording? We'll edit it later.
We need.
I'll make the motion to come back into, regular session.
I'll second that. All right, so a motion has been made by Heather and seconded by Betsy to come back into regular session at 7:16.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Sorry. All right, so you can go ahead.
I apologize. So the grievance was filed as a result of, that written reprimand. There was a email on the 26th to Mary Jo from the nurse manager. It was,
Wow. So typically when we have students' names, we redact that information prior to
Yeah,
giving.
so
it out.
we can't put that in with the students. handbook.
all right. Okay. These have the names on it. So, there was a hearing on the, as a result of the discipline. At step one, it was denied. And at step two, the union appealed that to step two, the superintendent, and that was denied. The grievance was denied. The union contends that the contract language is clear that the nurse must work 4 days. The nurse, the discretion may work up to 9 days. If the nurses wish to work up to 9 days, they must consult with the nurse leader on that date in question. Mary Jo had completed her 4 days before the nurse leader stepped outside of her jurisdiction to mandate additional days. As far as the vector training, that was all completed on time. And there was some comments in the record to Mary Jo that that she wasn't ready for the first day of school, that she didn't have her office in order. She was ready for the first day of school and her office was in order. And, that she considers herself a dependable, nurse in the school system, and, she wants to put this episode behind her. And, having a reprimand in her file, is, in the union's opinion and in our members' opinion, something that wasn't in keeping with her usual standards of excellence in the school system. And the union and Mary Jo are hoping that the board will remove that written reprimand, and she wants to move forward in her professional career here at the East Windsor School System.
Did I be heard?
No.
Okay, that concludes the presentation. So at this point, the board should recess to a non-meeting so that the board can deliberate concerning grievance. So we'll ask union members of the public to leave the room other than Zara, Mr. Gillard, and Ms. Gage.
All right, we're gonna temporary enter a non-meeting.
I'll make a motion that we enter into a non-meeting at 7.
Are we getting
19
tonight?
You may, I can't, here's what, the last time we had one of these, what I suggested is we find, go someplace and wait, and then if it's taking longer than I anticipate, I'll come find you and
Okay,
say,
just go around.
it's not worth
Yeah.
it.
Jess,
We'll
can
get
you
that.
put them like in the, like maybe the conference room so they have a place to sit?
Like an FRP.
Sure.
Who made the second?
I was just gonna say Noreen made the motion, but we need a second. Courtney second.
Yeah, you guys.
All in favor? Any opposed? Gonna stop the recording and we got that.
Make a motion to come back into session.
Second. All right, so Fran's made the motion and Heather seconded to come back into our regular meeting. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Heather has a
Yep.
motion.
I'll make a motion. I move that the East Windsor Board of Education deny the grievance and authorize the board chair to work with the board council to produce a written decision in accordance with the board deliberation.
Second.
All right, so motion was made by Heather, seconded by Fran. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm gonna keep my phone, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay, do you need a copy of?
Actually, we should probably give that to Patrick because Jessica.
Jessica's reading it.
Give it to us.
Now just give it to Jessica.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Oh, you're welcome. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, great.
All right, do you want to go ahead and do the student representative report? Isn't that the agenda? Well, just move in favor. All right, everybody, we're gonna move forward with the agenda. We have our student rep report.
The elementary school on Tuesday, October 15th, they celebrated Unity Day. Students from the high school did a video and completed a corresponding activity with each class. High school students also ate lunch and went to recess with elementary school students. Students and staff completed all about me posters that illustrate our commonalities and differences. These were shared with their classes and are on display in the school. For the middle school, on Thursday, October 10th, the middle school hosted its final home cross-country meet. The girls' team dominated, securing the top 5 spots and achieving a perfect score of 15. The boys' team finished in second place, earning a total of 54 points. Also on Tuesday, the 15th, East Windsor Middle School celebrated Unity Day. Students explored the meaning of Unity Day, collaborated in small groups to identify 10 things they had in common, watched an inspiring video about a high school student's act of kindness, and created their own kindness quotes. At the high school on Wednesday, October 9th, students had the opportunity to take the PSAT or SAT free of charge thanks to the district's commitment to supporting our scholars. 92% of our students took full advantage of this opportunity, demonstrating their dedication to their academic growth and future successes. These assessments are key steps in helping us meet our goal of achieving 100% growth and ensuring that 80% of our students reach grade level proficiency. We're not only preparing our students for test day, but for life beyond the classroom. By engaging in these assessments, they are growing as self-aware individuals, responsible citizens, and lifelong learners. Each student who participated took a meaningful step toward these goals, showing that they don't hide their Panther pride when it comes to their academic journey. Some other notes that I brought. the high school model United Nations had a trip to the United Nations headquarters in New York City, which I'm a part of. We got to speak to the UN ambassador from Ireland and have an EU briefing on current world issues in preparation for our Model UN conference in December. The 8th grade students had their first visit to the high school yesterday, where they were introduced to our electives, academics, and student life through elective specific activities, mini games, and a student panel presentation. Girls soccer and volleyball had their senior night last night, and boys soccer and cross country has their senior night and recognition on Friday. And we also had our homecoming dance last Friday, which was super fun and very nice. A lot of good things happening.
I have a question. Do you guys still have Model Congress or?
So we have Model UN and Model Congress combined as one club. So we work on bills and we work on our resolutions, but Model Congress isn't until like the spring-ish. So we do our Model UN first.
That's also the both.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the robust report and always appreciate your added information as well. All right, next on the agenda, we have a list of the upcoming meetings and events. Was there anything you wanted to highlight?
How are we with candy? Do you know, Mr. Field, for trunk or treat tomorrow? Hey.
I only have one bag. Actually, that doesn't sound good to me. I mean,
And I say if anyone wants to make donations, I don't know if they have more at the high school, otherwise we're gonna be running around.
Barbara said they're gonna drop some off tomorrow, but I mean, one bag right now.
That's not gonna be good.
And it might be going away tomorrow, depends on how the day goes.
So if anyone wants to make a donation for trunk or treat, we'll be out there. I promise you, we will have enough candy to wear.
What is the idea of what we went through last year?
Melissa shared there's about 300 kiddos that sign up. And we average, depending on who's handing it out. Some people give out more, but usually averaging about 3 to 4
That's different
pieces.
to me.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of this.
What's your theme this year? Are you guys saying it yet?
Jurassic Park.
Dinosaurs.
On the meeting agenda, I know that Noreen and Courtney and I had just said that probably it's gonna happen on the 8th and the 1st. Cause Dean can't come on the 1st and I couldn't come on the 1st.
Oh, for the athletics.
Athletic subcommittee.
No,
Does that, I was gonna save that for miscellaneous, but that works now. Does that work for those that are on that, like, so maybe we do the second Friday?
Yeah.
Going forward?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right, so that was referencing the November 1st meeting.
So just one.
Mhm. And a note, October 26th, which is a Saturday. Yes, there's also going to be the community paint day, which is painting the crosswalk, I believe.
Yes.
So if people want to join for that, people can.
My understanding is they're going to have other additional activities as well, in addition to the actual painting.
All right, and then we have some other subcommittees and other meetings listed here. Did anybody else have any other questions about the meetings and events upcoming?
Actually, so one I'll ask now. I was going to ask this later, but it's on the schedule. The November 26th BOE regular meeting. So I can tell you the agenda is very light right now for those agenda items. The only thing is if it depends on how the entire board is interested in receiving the first quarterly projections, because the subcommittee will have already reviewed those November 13th. But if the rest of the board is fine, waiting till the first December meeting, there may not be a need to have the meeting the Tuesday before.
And I was gonna say, for clarity, November 26th is the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We had moved from Wednesday to Tuesday, but if we want to, what are you saying? If that's light enough, and would it be all right for curriculum council to also not meet that time?
I think Daryl has a meeting, but maybe we can find an alternative day.
26th.
Kind of enjoy,
But I would leave, I mean, so like, I know obviously the finances and so like, again, the finance subcommittee will have reviewed it, whether the rest of the board wants it in November, they're okay waiting till December. Looking at the rest, there's nothing that's time sensitive.
Can we have it emailed?
Oh, yeah, we could email.
You can email it and then that way.
Well, I mean, we send the agenda out to the entire board, so the entire board will see what we send the finance subcommittee anyway.
Okay.
But that would be for the December meeting that you'd be sending out.
Well, it'll be for discussion for the entire board. You'll have the information prior. It's just whether you want to have the opportunity to discuss.
And that's the first quarterly report that we're seeing.
Right, yeah, correct.
Noreen, what were you? What were you feeling or what were you wanting to share?
I was just chatting with Brian. I thought we were gonna have the projections in December for a meeting in December. I could be spacing over here.
I know we moved it to the November 13th subcommittee.
Yeah, we did say December. I think Ryan and I's understanding was it would be to the entire board by December, so that's always been discussed. We just said we know it's going to go to the subcommittee that early as the rest of the board, so we figured it was worth putting it out there.
I'm okay with.
Yeah, I mean, even if I'm in town, I feel like Tuesday gets a little, you're always something last minute comes up or you have to do something. So I feel like meeting the Tuesday before Thanksgiving can be a little hectic. I think it would probably be nice not to have a meeting that week, but I don't know how other people.
I usually work, so it would be a big deal to take off.
Are you okay not meeting the week of Thanksgiving, Noreen, or?
I'm just, if the purpose of having the meeting was for the projections from, I would say personally, I would prefer to do those in December because we're gonna meet on the 13th.
Yeah,
It's the first time we're doing these projections. We haven't done quarterly projections or done any of that. I'm not sure what's gonna come out of our November 13th meeting.
Mhm.
We may decide we need to tweak or something. So I was anticipating the conversation would be in December.
okay.
So I'm okay with canceling this meeting.
You're saying that timeline works better anyway?
That's my,
Do we need a motion?
No.
Or no?
Is it making a motion?
Nope.
Cancel me? No, it's just,
Okay.
no.
So what about the curriculum meeting, Daryl? That's 26th.
Yeah, go ahead and cancel that. I'll work around it.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll reschedule because I know he does have some important things that need to get done, but we can find a day other than the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. to do that meeting.
I think Thanksgiving.
We should do Thanksgiving. Yes.
Okay. All right, are we good?
Yep.
Okay. All right, next we have the middle school report.
No. I should have.
Hello.
How are you guys doing tonight?
Good.
I'm still going so far.
Good. Yeah, the kids had a great time at the high school.
They were very excited when they came back.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Got a lot of high school swag.
Yeah, they wore their shirts today. Oh, yeah, we got t-shirts also.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of shirts today.
Water bottles and everything. It's really nice.
How many kids are,
There is, I want to say 81 eighth graders.
that's kind of a big group.
I think we do have it.
I think 81 off the top of the head.
I think
83, I was just like
I was gonna say, I think-
82.
82.
All right, but I think one just left.
We have one coming back.
And we have one coming back.
Sure.
So it'll be 82. All right.
Okay. That's what we have in our enrollment report later, so there. you
Right,
go.
but I think it
Yeah.
changes daily.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. All right. So I'm Tim Field, the principal of East Windsor Middle School.
Is this in principle?
So we'd like to share some things we're doing at the middle school. All right, so first is just, if ever, anyone's welcome to come. We can eat outside too, for our outdoor lunch area. They have a great time out there. So we're really connecting today with,
Sorry, am I going forward?
no, yeah, you're going forward. Thank you. All right. So with one of the strategic goals, number 3, the plan to continue implementation of evidence and research instructional strategies. And from goal 2, continue to create a positive learning environment. That's what we're really presenting on today. And then it's connected to the portrait of the graduate, which informs lifelong learners and really responsible citizenship and self-aware individuals. So I know the high school talked about this last year about the MTSS process, which stands for multi-tiered system of support. The high school is about probably 8 to 10 months ahead of us, with rolling it out. So this year really is our first full year doing the MTSS process, but really it's looking at data. And we have a leadership team, Linda, myself, Daryl, Cheryl, and then we have some teachers and coaches on that team. And then each grade level has their own little has a team too. And then we meet weekly. So our leadership team meets weekly, and then our grade level teams meet weekly also. But really it's looking at academics, behavior, systems, and attendance. So that's what we're looking at, and it's on a rotating basis. So every week has a different theme. So first one, we're going to talk about behavior. Really, we have tier 1 referrals, we have tier 2, tier 3. If you look compared to last year, we really spent a lot of time getting our systems in place, collecting the data. But if you look at our referral data, it's on a decline from our tier 1 standpoint, tier 2, tier 3. But we're looking at the data too, as we had in the beginning of the year some students making not really great comments. So we worked with the deputy chief to come in, kind of talk to kids about, making better comments, not making, like, how do you talk to each other if you're having issues? But we're looking at the data and coming up with solutions. So if we see, for example, our 5th grade team was looking at their referral data, they saw that there was a lot of incidences during lunch. So they sat the kids all down in 5th grade and kind of talked to them in the morning with their circles and kind of talked about what are the expectations during lunch. They went over that, and this month we see a decline in lunch referrals for 5th grade.
Can you just, I can't read at all.
I was just.
What the graph is actually showing.
Yeah, so tier 1 referrals in August there were 6. So this is school-wide, 35 in September and then 25 in October.
I appreciate that. I was just gonna ask if it was months on the bottom too.
Yeah.
because I was having.
So these are the months, and then the rate per day per month. So then you take how many days of school there is, how many referrals, and that's how you get the rate.
And just remind me again, tier 1.
Tier 1 is more like a classroom thing, like if a student is, maybe not paying attention in class, they got out of their seat and disrupting another student, like you remind them. A tier 2 is a little more like more severe. For example, a student now might have taken a pen and thrown it across the room, or you've talked to them multiple times and now they're playing basketball, pretending they're shooting the basket, pretend paper into the basket. Tier 3 is a little more like that could be a physical altercation. And then tier 4 is like a threat or, things like that.
Is it common to see a higher level of referrals the first full month of school?
So usually in the past, usually a first month has been lower. This month, we had a couple students that we worked with on making sure they were in the right placement.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all students. So it's not just, so we had a couple of new students that we didn't know. So we had to change their programming
Okay.
or support them in a better place.
Don't you think some of it at the beginning of the year is kids just like getting used to the rules again and knowing like they need to be
Yes.
paying attention?
Usually that's why you see the peak in October, because like they call it the honeymoon period's over. So this year I think our majority of the grades did really, really well. We just had a couple grades that like they increased it because they were new students to us. So I think once they understood the rules and routines, they definitely understand what the expectations are. So then again, behavior. So then we also celebrate the positive. So our weekly positive problem solvers, our Wildcat Cafes where the students can go outside and then and eat, and then awards ceremonies. And then so every week we nominate, the grade levels nominate a student for a weekly positive problem solver. One of our students who's going to be nominated this week actually was at the high school, and he got a t-shirt, caught it, and gave it to a student. The student needs more support. So he saw the student's face, realized the student really wanted it, gave it to them, made the student stay, put it on for the rest of the day, was glowing, but just like that, like more really being more positive civic leader that we saw that student do.
Another example is we have one coming up where the student is really struggling in a class, and the teacher could see it in the class, but as soon as like that bell rang, went up to the teacher and was like, listen, I need to stay after school because I do not understand this. So just taking that ownership and like realizing like I need this support. So that was really a positive as well. It's like they're recognizing a problem that they're having and they're coming up with a solution.
Where is bullying addressed in the tiers? 1, 2, 3. Where does that, when do you really get into that bullying component and really have to kind of do some kind of intervention. How many times, what kind of bullying incidents do we have in our middle school?
So that would typically be a tier 3. So parents, families, students, teachers can fill out a bullying complaint form.
Yeah.
And then it is investigated by myself and Cheryl Gustafson. And we do a lot of interviews. We see what we can find out and go from there and making a decision.
Do we have any right now?
So the majority of the bullying investigations, actually, it's, you have two parties where they both are not being nice to each other. So it's not power over another student. So right now, I believe there is.
We don't have any in place right now. There could possibly be.
Yeah, just, I know that came up from like the community survey, but, as a piggyback and follow up from that, Cheryl is presenting to the
Right.
board, December 11th.
Yeah,
So she
good.
is,
Should talk about that piece.
yep, absolutely.
Thank you.
And behavioral consequences, are they standardized for like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, or is it more like a case by case basis? How does that work?
So they're standardized, but also you have to look at if the student has a behavior intervention plan, if they have recent special education, things like that. But usually it's standardized for the majority part. Like if it's the third time you've already talked to the student or the third physical altercation they had, there's going to be a higher consequence than it's someone's first time.
Mhm. And that is all in like the behavior matrix for the student handbook. So they've all been aware and we've gone over it. So students are aware of that as well.
And the behavioral, what is the use of behavioral development
A behavior intervention plan.
intervention plan? So is that initiated on like the first strike? Like how does that?
So behavior intervention plan would be for some of our students with us that receives special education.
Oh, okay.
So depending on where they are, if their behavior, if they really need help, so that we have a behavior intervention plan through their IEP, and they receive some more support.
Okay.
But then we also have the reset room. So if we have a student who's really struggling with behavior, they might do check-ins with Mrs. Sharp, who's our reset, safe school, student support center. So she meets with students, kind of goes over like, she has check-ins with them. They might have a check-in, check-out sheet. They might have 3 things they're working on and they have a points chart. And then they meet with her and then they review the point chart at the end of the day and see how they did for the day. And then that goes home to the parent. So that's usually after, that would be a tier 2 strategy. So myself, Mrs. Deitch, or the grade level team follow strategies and implements that after like a couple times. And then we give them like check and check it out. So.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so then our social emotional learning circles are done in like 5th grade. They do it every day in their classrooms. Home visits, just checking with parents. Our oral lessons, parent meetings, check in, check out. Parent newsletters, grade level newsletters, and then our advisory lessons. So all this also goes with our MTSS process. So like something's not working, we look at, all right, what do we need to do in our MTS through MTSS that we see like, students are really, could be, anything could be like, they're running in the hallway. So do during an advisory lesson, every student goes over, how to walk in the hallway properly. And then academics, we look at unit assessments, I-ready data, math assessments, reading assessments, and we really look at, all right, if the student's really struggling, what supports do they need? Or if they're, if they're really doing well, what other supports do they need to keep doing, being positive and growing? And this is all done through our walkthrough. So Linda and myself do walkthroughs weekly, and then we give teachers feedback every week through the MTSS process too. That's the next slide. Yep. So we do, and we look at proactive and responsive routines. So like how they set the classroom procedures, objective, their learning plan, their learning targets posted, the kids know what they're learning, why they're learning it, positive and negative feedback, because it's really, I know as a parent, it's really easy to give negative feedback, but we really want that positive feedback. Like how do kids improve, right? You got to give them positive feedback there. Promote student discourse is one of our focuses. Students learn from each other more than they learn from adults. So how do we get students to talking to each other, especially after COVID? It was really hard because they were really afraid to talk to each other. So we've been really pushing that. And then the depth of knowledge, there's 4 levels. So 1, 2, and 3, 4. 4 is really higher order thinking. That would be like a big project, something like that they're doing in the classroom. DOK 1 is like, what is the capital of Connecticut? So we really want to see higher order thinking questions. And then we have their quadrants which is, if you're the blue, that's the best. It's higher order thinking and the students are engaged in the lesson.
So all these things are research based. And so this is what teachers have gotten like professional development on what does it look like to write a really solid objective. So students know what they're learning for the day, and how they're going to be successful, especially with the, including the more positive feedback versus the negative, as well as the depth of knowledge. All of those things have been research based and supported for the teachers' learning as well.
What's the okay for?
So the OK4 is like a higher order thinking, like you're taking all the information you created, like for science, and then you're creating like a science experiment from it.
Okay, so it being all red with 96, with the
Right, well, because this is the beginning of the year too, so they're not there yet. So like, for example, if I walked into Mr. Richards' classroom and he's doing a science experiment on sound waves, right? So he might have okay, 1, 2 questions, but at the end of the unit, the students are really taking that information and creating their own project based on sound waves that he taught them.
So if you were to come in June and show us the.
Or just at the end of the unit, it should be near the end of the unit.
Okay.
Yep.
I just, when I see.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Right. So you're not going to see every.
We have that.
one in every classroom.
You don't like her bigger as well.
and then one thing is, SFAC is tied to iReady. So one thing we've been really pushing since we got iReady is our iReady lessons. So we changed it a couple of years ago because it was by minutes. iReady recommends by minutes, but students are really smart, especially in the middle school. So they need to leave their screen on and do something else, which is right, really smart. So then we came up with we talked to iReady, and we came up with they had to pass 2 lessons in math and 2 lessons in reading a week, and that would really help them get those gaps that they were missing. Also extend their learning because the teacher can assign lessons based on what they're teaching that day too for homework. So the goal is, 80% of classes get it. So this is an example of 1 week. So we share this out every week. Lynn and myself share a newsletter with our staff, and we go over like the iReady data. So for example, this week in math, like 70% did 2 lessons, 18% did 3 or more lessons. So we are overall at 88%, which is really good. We've seen an increase of that the last 2 years. I think last year we were in like the 65% range. So we've increased that this year a lot. And then this is our iReady fall diagnostic results. So if you look from fall 2021 all the way to 24, really you see the dark green and green grow, and you've seen the red decrease. So we're on the right track. I mean, we're making progress. It's taking time, but as every year we keep getting higher in the green, lower in the red, which is really positive.
I have a question going back to the previous slide. So the students so the expectation is that they're doing 2 or more lessons, you said a week.
Mhm.
So is is it possible for students, like if you have a really self-motivated student to just full breeze through all of the lessons and like not have anything? And are those lessons like paced with what they're learning, like the actual lessons that they're learning?
So they take a diagnostic assessment in the beginning, and then it really paces where they are.
Okay.
So for example, if you take it and you're in 5th grade, your mind might look a lot different than Lynn does. So I might be 4th grade math. So I'll have some different assignments. And if Linda took it, she was in 5th grade, but she tested as a 6th grade math student. So it's going to look a lot different. But then the teacher then can assign different lessons based on what they're teaching also. And then they send us the same lesson based on what we learned in class. So yes, we've had a couple students who have done all the lessons based on where they were, and they tested out.
Yeah, so we recently had 3 students, and I worked with high school, Katrina and Darrell, to get them into Exact Path, which is what they use at the high school, so that they are still getting that path that supports them where they are in those lessons. So this program only goes so high, but we then do put them on the high school program.
Okay, so the lessons that could theoretically be assigned by the teacher, those could be used as like homework assignments. And the rest, the additional like 2 lessons would be just like supplemental.
So they would be, if the teacher signed it, it would also count towards their 2 lessons passed. Yeah.
But then if a student had like finished everything, then they wouldn't be necessarily doing the homework.
So they do have access, they held access to iReady, so they could do them. For them, it's not going to support them because they've already passed that.
Right, and they won't have those gaps that they're missing.
Okay.
So really those students who passed are like, so we have 3 students, as Lynn said, there are 10th grade math.
Mhm.
So iReady doesn't do 10, it stops at 8th grade. So that's why we're giving them different resources. And the teachers are finding different resources. So they're still doing homework, but they're really also doing assignments that really would push them in their knowledge.
Okay, so this isn't the only like format, like the only.
No,
forward.
oh no, teachers give out different homework too.
Okay.
Yeah, the positive, we had a number of, students that, were able to be placed in the algebra level class at the middle school, so they had to create a second, class.
For 6th grade, yeah, for accelerated.
Sixth grade? or-
Yep, 6th grade.
Sorry.
We had over, I think it was 29 students that, placed for accelerated math in 6th grade. So we made 2 classes. So that was the first time we ever had that many students. Yeah, very positive. And then and the same thing for math in iReady in the fall. If you look, fall, there was not much dark green. It was mostly light green and a lot of red. As you go, it's much bigger. The dark green and green is increasing. So we're on the right track.
But again, in terms of like it is the beginning of.
It's the beginning of the year.
Times kids
Right.
aren't gonna be on grade level.
No, right. So they're like right here in 4th grade is,
Yeah.
they're pretty close to where they need to be. But really we're pushing, but if you have the students who are, gifted, talented, so we really want them to keep growing too. We just don't want them to plateau.
But then you do have the concern if a student is like 2 years behind where their expectation is, then.
Yeah, so that's when we look at all the data. We look at the unit assessment, our diagnostic assessment, and then they get tiered support in reading or math.
So what does red represent? 'Cause-
3 grade levels or below.
And then the orange,
Orange would be 2 or more, and then yellow is 1. And then light green is beginning, and then dark green is at the end of the year or above. Yep.
Above grade level.
so 80% are at grade, not 80%, 18%, almost 90% are at grade level right now.
Without being taught any of the material. Yeah.
Okay.
Which is positive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then our attendance is one thing we really pushing to, and this is what we meet our MTSS is our chronic absenteeism. So every month we pull that data. So right now for September, we were 15% chronic absenteeism, but really it's looking at, for example, if you miss 2 days in September, then you'd be chronic absent. Because it looks at how many days present, how many days total. So those that student missed 2 days still, total for October, there's 40 days total. So now they wouldn't be chronic absent anymore. So the number hopefully will decrease as we have more days at the school. So then we look also at the grade levels. So the grade level teams look at what's going on. They meet about the students. They come up with action plans and action steps. And then we celebrate really our goal is 95%. Really, we're at 95 as a whole school for our overall attendance, which is really good. Because 2 years ago, it was like 92%. So we're increasing that. And we want to find out why kids are coming to school. So we just sent out a survey to our 5th graders, because really, if you look at 5th grade, they had the lowest chronic absenteeism. So we want to know, why do they come to school? Like, what's motivating them? So we just sent a survey out this week. And once we get the results, we're going to look at it. And then we're going to send one out to our 8th graders to find out like what's going on, why aren't they coming to school, and kind of figure out that and problem solve.
This attendance, have you been doing it for a couple of years?
So I-
If like for what was 5th grade, how are they getting better? Like as a grade? Like,
Oh, it's like a cohort.
Yeah, so I've kept the attendance probably since I started. So last year, our 6th grade had the best attendance when they were 5th graders.
Yeah.
But if you look at them now, they have the second lowest. Yeah. So we want to know what happened between 5th grade and 6th grade.
Yeah.
But usually if they have really good attendance in 5th grade, it does stay throughout the grade level.
statistically, there's like a certain age group that it starts to become
I was gonna say when they
when
can
it
be
happens.
independently left home alone more too, like, I mean, that like, like if your kid is like ooh, they're not feeling good, but I have to go to work, so you're gonna suck it up and go to school. And then like, as they get a little older, you can be like, you don't feel good, okay, you stay, I'm gonna be like, I don't know if there's any correlation.
I don't, I mean, I think, I don't know, my son's at the age where he can stay home alone, but I'm not, like, I'm like, no, you're going to school until they call me. Because I know what he's gonna do, he's gonna be watching TV, playing video games, he's not gonna be really, he's not gonna get the rest, needs, but yeah, I think it's like usually 7th or 8th grade where students are mostly staying home by themselves if they're sick. And then student life really, right now we have 13 after school clubs. We have the sports with the cross country. So we have the state meet is coming up. I believe it's November 2nd at Wickham Park. Band and chorus, which is amazing. They're doing a great job. And then student voices through student council. And then we have monthly incentives that we're continuing every month. Last month was our pep rally and flag football game, and then they're rotating. We kind of switched it up a little bit. Last year we did 2 hour, and we realized like that's a lot. So we're doing an hour where the kids can do their monthly incentives. So that was the feedback from the teachers also. And that's our cross country from the Wickham Invitational. So they did, boys and girls did a great job. Any questions?
For all the Narrow High School.
So that's, we had a big team last year and some of them were not running. I don't know why. So I've been talking to them.
Yeah, 'cause we need people. Right now we have 2 girls.
Yes. Yeah. So I know soccer takes some students.
Yes.
So
We have a beautiful track now.
I know. And the course is great at the reservoir. Yeah, it's intense. I don't think I could run it. But I don't think I could run cross country anyways, but definitely not running that one.
All right, did anybody have any other questions? Thank you very much. Very informative report. I appreciate it. Yeah, curriculum report next. Vera.
Yeah, no, I love following the middle school. He's just basically answered most of the questions on my slides. Fantastic.
I try to help you out every time.
No, I appreciate it very much so. So we're going to be looking at the diagnostic data across the district tonight. And you can go to the next slide. Obviously, this goes right along with our portrait of the graduate. And then certainly a strategic plan, really looking at data. We've talked about this a number of times, looking at data, making sure that we're analyzing the data, making sure that we're providing professional development for our teachers to respond to it. And I know I'll reference Tim's presentation a few times in here. And that this goes right along with some of the indicators Tim had addressed in his presentation as well. Conducting classroom walkthroughs, the data review cycle, and providing coaching to teachers based on those walkthroughs. So when he presented that data of when we're walking through, we are looking for very specific pieces in the classroom that we have provided professional development on. So if there's an indicator that isn't popping up green for us, or we're not seeing it, that's an indication to us that we could potentially have to go and provide additional professional development. And, we're open with the teachers, we're open with the staff, and that the principals are posting that weekly in their newsletters. So the staff is getting that same feedback as well on a weekly basis. So just a reminder, diagnostic assessments, we do these at the beginning of each year, but really the purpose for the diagnostics are looking at what our students' needs are, measure the growth over time. So, we've talked year over year, we'll give these diagnostics at the start of the year, we'll do another assessment mid-year, and then the last right at the end of the year, really we'll see that growth over the course of the year. We utilize the data to obviously look at our instruction, support our data-driven decision-making, and facilitate goal setting. The goal setting piece is important because we are goal setting with students. So if I'm a student and I sit down and I take the assessment at the start of the year, I might say to myself, all right, Daryl, here is your performance. This is where you are. Where do you need to improve? And Allison, during her presentation for the high school, referenced the scholar check-ins. So even at the high school, we're sitting down with the students, they're seeing their goals or seeing their performance, and then they're addressing it and saying, this is how I think, I will proceed forward. It also goes for the staff. As a staff, as a district, we look at where the student's performance is and say, all right, we really would like to focus our attention here. This is where I think I could best benefit our students by whatever the strategies are that you'd like to choose. So the goal setting are really essential for both students and teachers. So some of the data that I've included here in the presentation tonight, and again, I'm not going to kind of walk through each and every slide. And Tim referenced this specifically for the middle school, but it holds true really across the district. Students achieving at or above grade level over the last several years has continued to rise. So if you go back in some of the charts at the end of your packet, you'll see for 4 years of data, and you'll notice the red bar that makes you kind of twitch, that is getting a little bit less, and the green bar is getting a little bit more. Ideally, we'd really like to get that red to 20% or below. That would indicate our tier 1 instruction, 80% is really being, on target. That's really where you'd like to see, because then that would indicate your tier 2 and tier 3 interventions. If you put those in place, that should work itself out. So that's really holding true. And again, we're making incremental growth, and that's what we have talked about. Percentage of students performing below grade level has generally decreased. We have seen some elements in the math where it'll go up a little bit, but some of those concepts, I'm going to tell you, like some of those math concepts, they're difficult. So that doesn't shock me, especially at the start of a school year, to see that those kids might be struggling in those areas. And then just a few reminders. Diagnostic tests are based on end of year grade level standards. I know Kate referenced that. That's important to recognize. They're taking these assessments grade level standards at the very start of the year. They should be below. I would like to see them be 1 grade level below, not 2 or more, 2 or 3. But just as a recall, they should be below. And overall, the data shows positive growth, fewer students below grade level over time, which is absolutely what we're looking to accomplish. And then what I did was give a few examples just of the middle school and the elementary school. There's both ELA and math. This is the assessment data for their first assessments. It's no comparison. This is where they are right now. And there's charts for both the elementary and the middle. And then a few slides later, there's the high school.
Kids are like at the beginning of the year already testing above that grade level. Are they being like flagged and so that like they are going to be pushed and maybe given some harder things for them to be working on so that they continue to keep going with that?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of things. Obviously, there's the talented and gifted at the middle school. This year at the elementary school, we inserted a WIN block with the acronym. I forget what the acronym stands for, but essentially it's for that, what you've just described. You have students over a broad spectrum and to be able to meet the needs of all of them. So students who are either below, right on target, or above, you need the time to be able to sit down and address whatever their needs might be. So we are addressing those. Linda gave the example of the students who have already tested out, utilizing what we already have here in district, putting them on the high school track. So, I mean, if there's kids that are above and they need to get pushed, we're going to find out. And it's something we talked about even a couple of years ago. We looked at the specific data, and what we found was, I mean, iReady is very good because I could click on your name and you might at the start of the year test in that green or the dark green.
Yeah.
And it will say where your beginning of the year placement is and where your end of the year placement is. And it will give us a percentage of growth. So if you are not growing at the same rate as someone in the middle, that's an indicator for us as a school district, as a staff, to say, we need to push these students more because they're not showing the same amount of growth. So we break the data down to that particular level, if you will. So we are looking at that.
And question for you. So the SBA, what grade levels is that again?
So it's 3 through 8.
3 through 8, and that corresponds with the iReady typically?
Yeah, so iReady actually released a report last year where they went through the testing, and iReady performance correlated with how students would perform on our SBAC. I still say SBAC because people look at me weird if I say SBAC. So SBAC. So it did correlate, and I will tell you, we went back last year, looked at our end of the year iReady results, and it was pretty accurate. And we also, in iReady, we also have a way to look at our projected growth. So if we had 3 or 4 students here, it might say, if Daryl does nothing more, he's going to end up here. If Gabby does X amount, she will end here. If Betsy does this amount, she will end up over here. So we can project and say, if we get these students this amount of support, they're going to end up in this general area.
Okay.
And last year, when we looked at the end of the year, it was pretty close.
So I have a question for you. So this is kind of one of my questions. I don't even know. It's that, so when you look at end of year, like say 4th grade, okay?
Yep.
Your 4th graders are done and you've done, all the work that you can do with your 4th graders. Are we seeing the results of the 4th grade kinds of work that you're doing in our 5th grade currently? Yes, good.
Yeah, because if you think back to one of, I don't know if it was my last presentation, we talked about our performance with the Alliance District.
Yeah.
So we can break that down even further
Yeah.
to see specific grade levels and where they are. And I can tell you there was 1 or 2 grade levels at the middle school who were first out of
5th and 7th.
5th and 7th were first out of our 36 Alliance districts
Well, yeah.
in math performance.
All
So
the work that you're doing in elementary.
Yeah.
Now it should be starting to pay off in the middle school, right? As
Mhm.
far as moving that.
yeah, I mean,
NGSS too in 5th grade was really high also.
So, and again, I think you go back to my last presentation, you look at our SBAC performance, it's continuing to grow. And that's and we've talked about over the course of the last few years, we're going to see growth. We want to see incremental growth. And we are absolutely seeing that. So.
I have like a question / statement because I took the exact path and especially in the math one, I mean in the fall one, like reading and writing, you can score pretty high. But in the math one, my teacher had told me that I'm 2 grades below and had also told my best friend who's in 2 AP math classes. I'm 1 AP math and 2 honors. Like, what's the scale of what's on grade level? Because we almost scored perfect scores. We were in like the 88th percentile, but still it had told our teachers we were 2 grade levels below for math.
Yeah, so I can't tell you the specific scale off the top of my head. I can get people to get you that information. So what I will tell you is you're rated and you're compared to all of your peers across the country who are also taking that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can certainly get you that scale information.
Because it'll tell us like when we can go back and look at our data, they'll tell you like your raw score out of how many points, and then they'll tell you what percentile you're in. Like I could be in the 98th percentile for reading, but it will still say that I'm not like on grade level. So I think that those could kind of sway. So
Yeah.
I guess for everyone on the board, those look scary, but I promise we're not doing that.
Yeah,
My
but-
friends that are in like
So just
AP math classes are still super below.
So just remember what I said, though. I would expect people to appear as though they are more below grade level at the start of the year because they are end of the year standards.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, so that's no worries on my end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is really the first year that we've seen the exact path in this clear kind of trend line, if you will. And I would almost liken it to our first year with iReady. So we've got 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. We have more students taking the exact path, and I think a greater number of students taking them seriously than we've had in the past. So I will say, and Tim made reference to even the middle schoolers kind of working the system to get around iReady. At the upper grades, like they had to make adjustments. We absolutely had to make adjustments at the high school. They have to know it's meaningful for them. So we've made some adjustments. I don't want to speak for you, but I think like there's a carrot for students to look at it and say, all right, I want to perform well because I don't want to take this. Which is, I was in high school and it's like, if you want me to do something, tell me I don't have to do it anymore if I perform at a certain level. So, we've kind of put that challenge to the high school students. So hopefully we see kind of a better response.
Please, can you reiterate that again?
So if they test out, if they get a certain level.
So so it's a combination of performance on the PSATs and the exact path.
Okay.
And if they meet standard on the PSAT and the exact path, they're exempt for the remainder of the year for exact path.
For doing it like
For-
on
On a regular basis.
Okay.
Because what we were doing was here, everyone's taking it and they're like, what is this? What's in it for me?
Yeah.
So we put a carrot out there
Yeah.
and we'll see how that.
So do you think that like skews the data at all? Because if you're exempting students that theoretically are at or above, if they're meeting satisfactory results.
Yep.
Then theoretically, the people that are repeating the exam, you're gonna see a higher level of the red category. Because they didn't
Yep.
meet,
But in the grand scheme of things, I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
If the students are getting the supports that they need,
yeah.
I'm fine. with
But just so that we
Yeah.
know visually, we should expect to see probably higher
Yep.
proportions of the below grade level.
Yep,
for
that
the-
is,
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely accurate.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, those kids are gonna get the supports that they need. Either way, we should see the growth.
Mhm.
But
Just to,
Yeah.
but just to piggyback, like, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
But with that, like when we look at student progress, we're not looking at just one assessment. So
It's
this is
just one,
just
yeah.
one assessment, like Darryl talked about the PSATs, the SATs. You also have your unit assessment. So like looking at student progress, we're looking at it at all. This is just one indicator
Yeah.
of the bigger picture.
And I think, to Tim's presentation, they mentioned the MTSS. I will tell you, all of that data, all of those conversations that are now taking place, it's not that they weren't necessarily taking place a few years ago, but they're very focused now. So you can look at whether it's attendance, whether it's academic, whether it's behavioral, you can look at each of those and the conversations are much more focused and we know exactly what's driving some of those data points, which I think is very, very important for accomplishing what we want to accomplish. So we're not asking why is this, because we can drill down to such a detail, and then kind of really push what we need to.
Yeah. So what kind of remediation or support are offered to those students that maybe don't test out in the first phase or first round, I guess?
For the exact path,
The exact, that end up having to.
so they are placed on a path,
Okay,
like a learning path.
okay,
Same idea as iReady.
okay.
So it's, just to clarify, if this is correct, so it's something they might spend like 10 minutes a day on. In terms of like doing this on their computer, they're doing these lessons and this type of things, like almost as homework or in the classroom. But if they do really well on it, then they don't have to spend that 10 minutes a day doing it because they're said to have. So it's not just like a test that they take every month. It's something that they're working on every week.
That was my misunderstanding. So
So
Yep.
like every week they might be doing 10 or 20 minutes of like the math and the reading and the writing. But if they did so well that they don't have to, then they're like, oh, I don't have to do this 10 minutes anymore because I've already kind of passed that part of it.
Yeah.
So that's what it is. But the kids who haven't, then they're put on this path. So they work on those skills that are identified as helping. And as they pass those skills, then they move on to the next. Like it gets harder or it's geared towards specific, whether it's reading or writing or math that they're working on. It's geared towards those specific lessons.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna argue with anything you just said.
Well, just as like a parent who's had like kids
Yeah.
taking some of it, or as someone who's, heard this a few times, like, so just to clarify, it's not just a test that they take every quarter.
Diagnostic test.
It's also like they take the test and then that gives them the homework.
Got it.
So, yeah, and so the diagnostic test, as you say, like that happens 3 times a year. So it happens the baseline. So we just gave the baseline. Then it'll say, Daryl really needs improvement on whatever. Math. That would be the area I need improvement on. So I would be given a path and then I would sit for the second assessment, whenever we have that scheduled. How did I grow? Did I not? Whatever that might be. Maybe I passed, I assessed out. Great. If not, they'll provide me another path. And by the end of the year, I'll come back here and do another update and we'll look at all the growth.
Okay.
But I appreciate the point you made because it's a very accurate one. But yeah, at the end of the day, as long as the students who need some of the supports that I need to get them, because that is difficult. Like
Yeah.
high school students, number one, you're asking them to admit that they need support on whatever the academics challenge may be for them. And that's tough.
Yeah.
So, originally we started off with iReady and the feedback we got from the students and they were like, this is really like beneath us. It was kind of babyish to them. And I get it. The real problem you ran into was after the pandemic, there is not a lot of intervention programming for high school.
Yeah.
Because ultimately intervention should work itself out between the elementary and middle school. So once you get to the high school, there's not programs. I talked to Patrick about this. I go to an iReady conference each year and I talk to the guy every year. I'm like, hey, have you guys ever worked on the high school? And he's like, no. He's like, there's no money in it. And that's, it's just, there's not a big enough want and need for it.
And I think there are kids who
there are.
definitely struggle. And there's been articles, there was just an article about someone in Hartford, a girl who graduated and still couldn't read.
Yep.
So obviously there are situations where kids are getting caught in a system that isn't supporting them.
100%. But yeah, like I said, I've asked every year and they just kind of
Yeah.
no. So questions, just kind of. And then again, I added some graphs in your packet and what it does show is the growth over time. So the last 4 years, you'll see some more specific data.
Daryl, do you think at some point you could, maybe in one of the presentations or maybe with the schools, just, like examples of some of the questions that are geared towards, I'd be curious to just visually see what is coming up on the screen, how fast.
I could give you guys each an assessment. Yes. You put you on your own path.
Say not fast, so it's not.
No. Yeah, we could absolutely do that.
I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I've seen that I can pass the second grade one.
Yeah.
We're about the third grade.
No, I know. And it's funny. It's like, as a parent, it's these kids are doing now. Wow. But all right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. All right, I think we have the financial report next on our agenda. Thanks, guys. So Ryan,
Yeah.
you're up next.
For the financials, the finance subcommittee did take a pretty in-depth look at the financials. I did attach a memo to the overall packet for the board tonight, just to kind of sum up what we had discussed. The big thing I wanted to draw everyone's attention to is the FY25 year-to-date report. Now is the new version of the rolled out budget that we agreed on in the finance subcommittee. So just for kind of clarity, it follows the way that the budget actually is budgeted for, if you will. So instead of going off like object numbers like it did in the past, we now have the ability to sort it by, you know, Broadbrook, middle school, high school, sped, you know, so on and so forth. So that's in there. So I'm kind of excited to have that moving forward. And yeah, we're just continuing it along. And if anyone has any questions, we can answer them.
I just want to make a comment. We talked about this rolled up version at our subcommittee meeting. And we decided to, did this document that goes to the board of finance for them to see.
Yeah.
And it's the document that we will include in the package going forward for all of us. When we meet, we have the 56-page
Yeah.
report and go through it. And we decided for not only to save trees, but to keep everything a little bit more efficient, that we would do this. But if you want the full version, you're absolutely can get it from Ryan.
Yep, I'm
You know,
happy to send it.
there's not an issue with, getting the full version of it.
And was there anything that you wanted to highlight, Noreen, or anything that?
No, it's kind of early
Yeah.
in the year, just not. There's nothing that we discussed that's an out of the ordinary situation that we see facing us at this point.
So I have a question. So we see zeros and open choice, like in the beginning, that's just because that's on page 29. And then, but I see as we go across, right? Okay, two. The overall package is like two of the budget. 29 and our, like two.
Oh, the zeros.
That open. Yeah, how zeros in that first column?
So there's zeros in that because the open choice number
It's nice. Okay.
is not,
Okay,
yeah,
that's
it's
what I
kind of
figured.
I
Yeah.
don't want to put a
Okay.
assumption in there.
Yeah,
just in
okay.
case it's off, so I
Alright.
kind of track it.
So any place where that is kind of a goose egg in here, that's because you have specific. number.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's, I know in years past, we had a lot of those, so I kind of narrowed those down.
Yeah.
to Mostly the
Thank you.
choice ones now. Yep.
Anything back, this, the beginning, this is our budget,
The
what
front,
the town gives to us to fund education, that gets voted on. After that, our grants that either come from the federal government, the state, whoever, wherever they come from. And in some respects, the budget number is not quite known in the beginning because we're waiting on information from them.
Yeah.
The spending is happening, which is why Brian has money spent in
I
that.
see.
And
Okay.
that's stuff that we look at when we talk, and then as Ryan will do his projections, he will look at those and we'll make sure that, that we're keeping track of it and that we know where we're going, but it's important for everybody to understand, this is the town money. This is the money the residents are giving us, and this is all money that's coming from other sources, either Project Choice, our title grants, our state grants and whatnot. And those numbers can be a lot more flexible than these numbers. All right.
I would say that's an accurate
Okay.
assessment. I appreciate it.
All right, does anybody else have any other questions? All right, thank you very much. I think next on our agenda is the personnel report, which is on page 50 of the packet. And there's a few appointments, transfers, resignations and retirements and stipends that are outlined in there. Did anybody have any questions about the personnel report? All right. Next on the agenda, we have new business for a vote. And do you want to speak?
Yeah, I can give a little background. So, in speaking with our athletic director, Dean, who first brought it And this is Dean's first full year. Last year he was hired, but it was right, if it wasn't into the school year, it was right as it started. Have discovered we have no policy that covers co-op sports and the costs associated. Upon some research, we do have two seniors. So this was first brought to our athletic subcommittee. Then it was brought to our finance subcommittee because of the financial impact, and then was then shared with BPR. So in some way or form, it's likely that everyone has seen this at some point, but now it's on the regular meeting. So the policy you have before you is what's being recommended, but recommended to be implemented next school year. So those that participate in co-op sports would not incur a fee until next school year. Like I said, we have two seniors that through those subcommittees wanted to make sure they were grandfathered in, didn't feel that was appropriate for them to incur a fee when it had not been previously placed their other 3 years. We do have students in the 9th grade, and we would anticipate there will be other students going forward. So I'm thinking about being equitable with resources, wanted to adopt a policy that was in line with other school districts. Certainly I can answer any questions.
I definitely have a bunch of questions about it. Do these other school districts also have like pay play for their other sports in the schools? Like I know some, like, I know that hockey is a more expensive sport, right? Because you're paying for the ice time and things like that. So do we know like what our fee is currently that we pay for these kids to do gymnastics, hockey, is football is considered a co-op?
Yeah, so I can tell you there's no cost of football as far as a participation fee. So for example, Stafford does not, like we do not pay a fee to them for our students to participate. For the one hockey player and one gymnast last year, it was $2,400 per kid.
Okay.
So that was the district. So certainly we're not asking the families to incur the cost, and that was consistent with all that were participating. So like hockey is with Ellington and South Summers. Certainly they have policies in place in which like there's a percentage of the fee that's incurred by the family. Certainly we wanted to recognize those that are eligible for free and reduced lunch. So if you are eligible for either, we would waive that. And then going back to your question, some do have like a play pay to play for other sports and some don't. So it's not consistent. So yes and no, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And like what does it cost for other sports with like the transportation that we're providing for them for uniforms, right? Like, do you have those costs to compare it with?
Like breakdown to what per student?
Yeah, just curious, like what the comparison is between the two, like.
No, not offhand. I mean, we can do it, but I don't have it offhand to provide it.
Mhm.
So my question is, if we have, so for example, in hockey, and Ellington and their policy and Summers or whatever, they pay the same price?
So I'll use Summers and Ellington, for example. Their prices are similar, but they're not identical because they have like one is I want to say one is like 60% and one is a straight fee.
So what is ours actually gonna be?
So what we are proposing, well, it's right in the policy, so sorry, let me just pull it up.
Yeah, I was reading the policy, it just didn't seem, it just said like what they decide, but like.
Yeah, the whole school. So for example, like, let's say there isn't, football's easy to use. Let's say there was a fee for football, then and Stafford was charging their students to play, then we would fall in line and charge.
And how are we coming up with the number, I guess, is what I'm trying to.
We are adopting the fee from the whole school. So we are being consistent with, so for example, I'm not sure, I'll use gymnastics, for example, because the whole school is South Windsor. we would adopt whatever, the host school. So they're basically paying the same thing as their teammates on the team, if that makes sense. So we send a student to play, gymnastics or,
I guess what I'm asking, right, if we had, say, like a town that we know is lower income, right, like New Britain, I'm not even trying to, but like a bigger, more, and their fee is only $15, while Suffield has a fee of 75. Like, how do we determine?
it would be the whole school because everyone's like, there's, with 3 schools, there's one that's identified as the
Okay,
host.
so a host school is the person who's providing the food,
Correct.
providing the ice.
They're the one,
providing-
essentially, like, when you wear the uniform, you're only wearing one uniform. So
Yeah.
like, let's say like it's Ellington, they're the host school. Everyone's wearing the yellow Ellington uniform because they are the host team.
It's co-ops are, I perceived co-ops to be different, like, because they're wearing a tri-town jersey, so they're including all 3 towns in there. So is there a host?
There
for-
is, yep, Ellington's,
Ellington's the host,
they are.
but they're still representing East Windsor, correct? Because you're representing your own town. It's not like
And-
there isn't. Correct. I don't know if that's correct or not.
Yeah, I can't speak to
I
it.
mean, I can add feel mine. I
No,
can tell you.
Daryl's a former AD, so I mean,
But Tri-Town too is, like, it's the name of that team.
Yeah,
So like I live in Coventry,
right.
they have a co-op for football.
Yeah.
They all wear a Coventry uniform.
Okay.
So I think it depends upon whoever that coach school is, whatever that team might be called. Like that's just what they decided to call that co-op was the Tri-Town.
Okay.
But like I can tell you, there are many kids because Coventry doesn't have a big enough population, but they all wear a Coventry
Yeah.
football uniform.
And do we take into account that our town is definitely lower, like socioeconomical than Ellington, Summer, South Windsor at all, or no?
I mean, I think that like, so we take it as like individuals. So I think that's where like taking into account like eligible for free or reduced lunch, regardless, even if it's reduced lunch, we're waiving the fee.
And then I'm not 100% sure, but I know like, only just because I know about some of the hockey stuff, but there's a booster club for the specific hockey team and they do put money towards stuff. So I'm not sure if they put money towards like the Ellington kids tuition and they haven't in the past for the East Windsor kids because the East Windsor kids haven't had to pay anything. So I just want to make sure that like that booster club isn't contributing more for the kids that are paying.
Yeah, so I can tell you that's not, my understanding,
Okay.
in previous conversations regarding booster clubs and funding.
So essentially, just so I can say the South Windsor Gymnastics, in South Windsor's fee to the South Windsor children who are in their own students is $1,500. Our fee will be $1,500.
Right. Even though the total cost, so we are still paying per kid.
Correct.
We're just not paying or incurring the entire cost.
So
Yeah, to be clear, we're not,
it will always be
yeah, we will always be funding a portion of the sport and a decent portion.
based on what the host school determines. We're not gonna every year sit here and say, okay, well, this year we want this much for hockey.
Correct.
We're going to say, host school, what is your fee for your children to play? And we adopt that for whatever sport it may be.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So I have another question. So if, we're talking about hockey, does the school district say, we will be playing hockey, say in Ellington and Summers, as our high school, you know what I mean? We're designating the space. Right.
Yeah, that's already designated.
That's our designated team.
And gymnastics, the same thing?
I mean, you have fewer options. I mean.
Right. But I'm just wondering, like if 6 kids,
Yeah.
we don't send them all over the place. We
Yeah, some of it, so the co-ops, they work 2 ways. So gymnastics is an individual sport.
Yeah.
When you're talking about like hockey, football, those are team sports. So usually I'll address the team sports because they really are 2 different like partnerships. your team sports are usually you're signing on for a 2 or 3 year
Okay.
co-op. So you may see like football's like one that you see more, like the smaller school districts that have interest in football are constantly changing their co-ops based on like the year that they expand. Especially like kind of like in the this pocket.
Yeah.
We've been pretty consistent where it's been us summers with Stafford and Stafford being the host school. Hockey, since I've been here, I think it's the same 3 towns that have been part of that one team. The individual sports can change because it's an individual. So you're really looking for a team that can take on like essentially like one. I think so South Windsor has been gymnastics. I know they've been one for us for swimming in the past too. But I know there's also been other groups that have picked up our kids over the year. We don't have any current swimmers, but like who have picked up our swimmers. Typically Enfield has picked up like we've like from we don't have any currently, but we've had golfers. And they've picked up like a golfer from time to time. I think in one year we might even had 2 or 3.
Okay.
So individual is a little different. You see, you know, a little bit more movement with that. And then our team sports have been pretty consistent. And then on the other end, we for some of our sports, we have been the host school. At one point, it was softball, though we are not currently. We have been for baseball. Where they've come to us.
Okay. So what sports will this cover? This will be.
This would cover anything in which it apply like that we, so like, I mean, if you're asking like, I can answer the question what it's anticipated to cover this year. But like I said, this
It
could
may
be
change.
correct. Like if you, like I just said, we don't have a golfer. If we had a golfer, it would apply. If we had a swimmer, it would apply. Like even in football, if a fee was incurred by football, it would apply. We don't get a cut, like, we don't, we cover the transportation for the football, but that's our only contribution, and that's by choice of the board during budget season. There's nothing in our cooperative that says we have to pay for the transportation.
Okay, and just so for clarity, so we pay a certain amount, soccer, baseball, whatever here, we as a district, there's a certain amount of money that goes.
Correct. You would have coaches stipends, referee stipends.
So is that amount going to offset the cost for hockey or not tennis, hockey or golf, or will that same amount, so that student will benefit from the same amount that we would have offset than if they played soccer?
In theory, yes. I mean, I'd have to do the math to see if it's a perfect match. My guess is it's probably not a perfect match sport to sport within our own
So if
district.
it's
though.
$1,000, it's not that full 1,000 that a parent has covered. The school's still covering some.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the same thing with the whole school. They're not charging the families the entire cost. What comes in, the 2 biggest ones honestly are gymnastics and hockey. And the cost is like the facilities fees. So like when you think of ice time and we think like high schools, I mean, we see what you get for square footage. No one's building a gymnasium for gymnastics to host as part of other schools. So they have to rent facilities for their practice and all of that. So there's a heavy cost with that. Like in comparison to like some of the other ones like basketball, football, there's courts and fields that there isn't, like they're existing in the buildings and structures you have, if that makes sense.
For me, my only concern is I just don't think there's like proper language for how the fee is. Like, it doesn't say that it comes based on the host school or I just find it vague to know. It says the fee established by the Board of Education prior to the start of athletic season must be paid. But like,
But in the first paragraph,
Says we'll pay the same participation fee the students from the away host school district.
missed it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. And if we do this now, do we have to have something in this indicating that it will be for next year?
Yeah, within the vote, you'd have to, but that was a recommendation of both that and the finance subcommittees.
What is our stipend for like coaches that we pay at our schools?
We could look online, it varies. Point ballpark at about 5,000, but they're. Go online and give you the range and shortly.
All right, so are people ready to vote on this tonight, or do you feel like we need a second reading? Are you guys good? I know there were a lot of questions.
I think from a budgetary standpoint, I think for us as a board, this makes sense. But for the parents that will end up having to pay this, I think that that's gonna be a challenge. And
Because we're talking about like 6 students out of.
Yeah, should there be language in here indicating that the town will offset a portion of the fee? Or the school would offset a portion of the fee? Because if like just reading this, it seems like the student is gonna incur the entire fee themselves. I don't know if it's necessary, I'm just wondering.
So I can tell you discussion talked about like doing a straight fee, doing the concern was like your policies age. And so like you're going to constantly have to revise it. And existing schools have like a structure and thinking about it like as a team component. Essentially they're paying the same thing their teammates are paying. That was the discussion.
Okay.
So that's why it says the same participation fees as students from the host school. And the Board of Ed or the district would take the other percentage, like whatever. So the student or the parents pay what the host school is charging for their own students.
Mhm.
But if they're charging us more because we're coming from a different town and they're charging us fees or whatever, we're just asking the parents to pay the same amount that the kids in those other schools are paying. The Board of Ed is gonna cover the other side of it.
Okay.
So the Board of Ed is still gonna pay a portion of it.
Got it.
It's not the entire person.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, me personally, I know this sounds like really weird and crazy, but I would just like to see like, I totally get it. It's expensive. It's more expensive most likely than other sports are. But I would also like to see like, we're paying coaches, transportation, uniforms, all of that stuff. For like the other sports, so I would just love to see like a numbers comparison and like what we're actually paying kind of per student for some of the other things to compare it to. And just.
Just
have
to
a-
say like, parents are having to pay this anyway, or like what's, I guess I'm just not
If we're
understanding.
paying $5,000 for a coach stipend, how much is transportation costing us to get kids to places? I don't know if transportation is expensive. I don't know what it costs us to transport with the buses. There's no transportation provided, like for my kid to get a ride to the hockey rink or for the gymnastics girl to get a ride to wherever she's going. So they're not getting that type of transportation included
They're not getting
in
the
there.
benefit from.
Yeah, I mean, the
No.
quick math I would do is I would just take our entire athletic budget and then divide it by the number of,
Like students.
yeah, and I would just, that's how I would provide the number. So it wouldn't be based on sport, or like, we just do the quick math that way. You know, we'd pull the sports transportation, we pull coaches, referees, we'd put like the total amount of money that goes into athletics. We'd take the number of athletes in all our sports and I would just divide it, and that's how I'd give you kind of like an athletic peer pupil, so to speak.
Yeah. I'd just be curious to know what that number is, honestly.
Go ahead, Nora.
So it sounds.
Can I make it just a suggestion that, this will be effective for the next school year? I'm not sure if we wanna do a second reading or not. I can understand that we might want to, but I'm thinking, since this doesn't affect anything this year, can we maybe go ahead and do our thing with this either tonight or next time? And then during budget, we have a bigger conversation about what our actual cost of athletics are across the board. Like Carrie, I understand, it makes sense. So maybe between now and when we have to start doing our budget work, have a bigger dive into what do our athletics actually cost us.
Or even if it's not budget time, but we just want to bring all that information, like last year's comparison, like what did the athletics cost, this type of thing.
Yeah, I'm thinking budget time just because when we do the budget, it'll be for next year, so we'll have to be, because nothing was budgeted for any of this. So when we do the budget, we're gonna have to budget
Well, somewhere budget.
Some was, we've had it in the past.
If anything, it's gonna be a reduction. in budget.
It'll cost less for the town.
Because they're- yeah.
Our budget.
I don't know.
So some was budgeted. I can tell you we budgeted, about 4,800 and the cost is, about, I challenge my math. No. Almost 15.
Do we have a jump in kids that are participating in some
Oh,
of the
we do.
sports? this
Yep.
year?
So we essentially, and again, I think this probably would have been a conversation earlier.
Yeah.
With our athletic director, but I mean, when he started in September.
Yeah.
So what brought this up was, and why we're bringing it up now is we also want to communicate to those families well in advance before the winter season, because the winter is really those sports that we're talking about, hockey and gymnastics coming up. So we can message it to the families like, yes, there will be, no fee this year. However, there will be, so they're given, appropriate, notice well in advance, and we're giving it years. So that's where the discussion came as far as, and that's why it's on the agenda now and not in June, so to speak, keeping the families in mind.
Then I
But is it something we could talk about like at the next meeting?
I mean, as a board, you can decide, I can tell you, so there's no decision. I mean, we would be budgeting, like, so if I'm putting together my budget, I'm working with Ryan. I mean, the numbers are the numbers. If we continue, then, we're budgeting 15,000.
we change that. Oh,
15.
Is VPR meeting on the 30th? I mean, is it something that?
Yeah, October.
BPR season?
Like, I feel like it could.
It was shared and, essentially because it had already gone through athletics, subcommittee, had already gone through finance subcommittee based on the board meeting, and, our last BPR was canceled in between. It was emailed to BPR members and stated if they had any individual questions, they could reach out to me. And it was shared with them ahead of time that it would be on the agenda. So it was communicated. No one reached out to me with any questions leading up, so therefore it was put on the agenda.
I saw it both at athletic and finance, and on mine, it was getting sent to BPR, I assume, from a thought or whoever did something with it.
I mean, we didn't.
So I don't know
really
if
have the conversation on it. I mean, we got it, but,
We do need about it at our meetings too.
oh, yeah, finance.
Yeah, that's fine.
Haven't talked to them. So what does the board feel? Would you rather have BPR take one more look at it on the 30th, and then we can talk about it on our next meeting, like November 13th? So we're still kind of getting it, hopefully done before the new year, to say, but I understand, I mean, by November 13th, and people who signed up for winter sports will be signing up for them, right? Like, is that?
But it's not for this year.
I know it's not for this year, but what he was saying was when parents signed up this year, we could say, we know we're saying
I
this
think
year.
we've already signed up. I don't know when the, I think it was like the end of October. is the
We're saying we wanted to message it to parents who are signing up for winter.
The only that would have been, I mean, that was the discussion at those other subcommittees, but honestly, if the board needs more time, then I would take the time.
Okay, so is that, I feel like there was still a lot of questions.
Yeah, I think at this point too, I think the cutoff to sign up for most winter sports is probably done or almost done. Cause they'll start in the next month or whatever, but whatever you guys want to do.
All right, where it was on new business for a vote, just, if we need to officially table it, or if we can just not.
Just vote on next time. No, we'll just say that it closed. No motion was made. I just think for me, if at once, I think if this is discussed on the 30th, like with the board policy, I've always like, if people have actually gotten a chance to like look at it and talk about it, then I would be, I think this needs to happen.
Yeah.
Right, so it
That's
can
not
come back
the
on the
issue,
next
but I
agenda
just
for the
don't know.
13th. as long as DPR is good with that. All right,
Language and everything.
so we're not gonna make a motion, but we would like to see that on the next agenda. All right, next under new business for vote, we have a vote to approve job descriptions. We have two different, actually, we have a couple different things. So we have the paraprofessional building substitute first, and then, there's a couple different stipends in terms of high school clubs for director of drama, musical director, and technical advisor that all have to do with the drama club. So could we do the drama club ones together, or should we need them all?
I would say whatever, you're comfortable with, just to provide a little context, paraprofessional building sub, that's a brand new, job description. We have a number of, pair vacancies, and then we have a number of pairs going out on FMLA, and to provide the necessary special ed supports, we really need a person to fill in as a sub, and we're just not getting enough coverage. So we're going to just, we're going to reallocate funding through like subs and what's not being used for vacant positions to fund the paraprofessional building sub. And then the high school, club stipends, these are the positions to support the drama production that's gone on the last 2 years. That's been very successful. And looking at the job descriptions, they were very antiquated. So we wanted them updated as far as what those responsibilities really are for the work that goes involved.
I think it would make sense to do the paraprofessional building substitute separately, and then do the other ones together. So did anybody have any questions about the job description for the paraeducator substitute? It's on pages.
I just have one question and comment, and I guess, and I don't know, it's probably an HR question. I just wonder, do we have any disclaimer about that we're an equal opportunity employer that we would put on any of the job postings that we would provide? Could you check with her just to be sure? And I have no problem.
I can actually think the same thing. When we did the last set of job descriptions, we had a few of them a couple months ago, and we had a couple that had that disclaimer on the bottom
Yeah.
about federal law and whatnot, and then we had a couple that didn't. And I think we decided that they should all include
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, they should.
Well, we can add that.
Yeah.
I can still follow up with you, Betsy. I'll move on.
Yeah. Okay.
Do I have a motion regarding the paraprofessional building substitute?
I'll make a motion to approve the paraprofessional building substitute job description with the added equal opportunity notation. Second.
I'm sorry, who said it? Courtney. All right, so Heather made the motion and Courtney seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. And then the high school club stipends, as Patrick mentioned, this is regarding the drama club. And it kind of goes into musical director, director of drama, and technical advisor. This was just kind of outlining these a little bit better for expectations on what these different roles would entail if they to get to earn the stipend. So it talks about, you know, after school schedule performances, different things if you're doing the lights versus musical director and that type of thing.
Should the director of drama have the drama club production after? Like the other two?
We try to match it up with the wording in the contract, because the rate of pay is contractual, so I understand where the question I would just tell you it was done intentionally
Okay.
to match it up to be consistent with how it was listed in the contract.
And I asked about the pay contracts.
Yes.
The first two, the drama, director of drama,
They get the same pay.
they're getting group 4 appendix B. And then the technical advisor is group 6 of appendix B.
It's lesser pay. I'd have to go in, but I can tell you, A and B. I think, in speaking with those that are involved and are knowledgeable, would attest that it's more work than the technical advisor will still be important.
So what is that stipend for the A and B?
There's a group 6 and a group 4.
I'd have to look in the contract as far as the actual dollar amount, because it gives a percent, so you have to take the percent and multiply it by,
So it's somebody in school.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's somebody, it's a teacher,
Okay.
it's a teacher who's already here who's getting a stipend to do that.
Okay,
I want to say it's
You-
consistent with like, and so I want to say it's probably approximately 5,000.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Technical advisor is probably approximately 2,000.
okay.
And I mean, theoretically, it could be someone from the middle school who comes up and gets
Yeah.
a stipend too, like they might not be a high school.
But
But
the
I
last
think-
2 years, the drama director has actually been someone outside the school.
Oh.
And the musical director is essentially typically been like your band director.
Yeah,
I was just curious that somebody, when they devised these, looked at appropriate pay for the positions. Because I don't remember ever seeing drama director listed in the contract.
Yeah, it's,
I don't know. You don't have to look it up. I just wanted to make sure that it's correct that 2 are one price and 1 is a different price.
correct.
A different-
Yeah, no, I can tell you, I can assure you, we looked at the contract before. And we intentionally, like the wording is consistent with what is in their contract.
And we can do all three.
I think we can do all three at once.
I'll make a motion to approve the director of drama, the musical director, and the technical advisor job descriptions. Seconded.
All right, so motion made by Heather and seconded by Carrie. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you very much, everybody. All right, and then liaison and subcommittee reports.
The correct advisory council last Wednesday, yes.
How did that go?
Well, it's very interesting. Sit on the other side of the table. It was good. You know, I talked a little bit to Patrick about it. The one thing I kind of gleaned in the beginning is that they're experiencing, the stuff that we, programming from crack, for example, the minority teacher recruitment program. We're scheduled to have some cuts in it. And I don't know what that means for current school system, but it's what it is. So, in terms of what that might mean for future stuff. So that's about it, other than sitting around.
I know those were interesting in the past when I was able to go to them. I just haven't been lately, but I appreciate
Sure.
I appreciate you being able to go and updates on.
Well, I just want to,
Minority.
pay real attention if there are any grants that are available too.
We appreciate that.
All right. Are there other liaison subcommittee reports?
I mean, what finance kind of, right now, it's go to the financials and
I'm sorry, can you go over? it?
Oh, no.
I missed the last PTO meeting because it's not really a liaison report, but I was at the Trolley Museum for a French sponsored evening French, does joint
Choice, yeah.
joint things with the choice kids. And so we were at the Trolley Museum and we went out on the trolley and got pumpkins and then they had delicious food from Sophia's afterwards and all of the kids got a book and they had story time inside. We went last year as well. It's a lovely evening and it's great to see everybody interacting together. The students from Hartford and the students from East Windsor. It's kind of funny when you're on the trains. We're so used to because we live here, it's like, well, it's the Trolley Museum. Yeah, 100 million times we've been on it. The excitement that the kids have, like going in the museum and being able to run around on those trains and whatnot. A very positive interaction and the things you hear from the parents who are not East Windsor parents is just astounding. So I was there. It was a great night.
I actually attended the PTO. I could actually give you an update. So I can tell you, it did start off, I asked to be on their agenda just to give an update as far as where we are with the facilities work. And so, that was very well received, even, sharing like the thought process, regarding, like a shared campus for middle school, high school, let them know where we are. Like, there's still a lot of work to be done and that, stressing that we are at the very beginning of the process and that through focus groups and surveys, we will be reaching out, and we anticipated to be sometime in the new year and to be lookout and answered some questions among the group. I can tell you as far as their other agenda items, they were talking about membership. They hadn't been advertising as of late, so they said they needed to kind of get going and started to push their memberships because they are down. But again, they attributed that to not pushing it out as much. They're promoting the mileage club that I know Miss Daniele does and does a fantastic job. Their pie sale that was due at some point soon. I did buy a couple pies myself. And so that I believe those orders are done, but pie pickup. They are going to have a presence at Trunk or Treat, so they spoke to that. Although I don't know if they reveal what they're doing. They may have. And there was another thing they mentioned. Show was an upcoming activity that's not coming to mind. But that was it. Other than that.
I went to the Board of Selectmen meeting. I don't have too much to report on that meeting. The Art and Culture Commission was there, talking about more of the projects, brought up the pink and crossword that's going to be happening. There was a lot of talk about the drone program that's collaboratively our Broadwood Fire Department, West Hartford, or the Warehouse Point Fire Department and the Police Department have been working on, and they basically to get drones at each station to help with public safety. Pretty interesting. There's been a lot of talk about it. So if you're interested in kind of learning what's going on with that, watch some more of the meetings. And there was mention of the new tabletop gaming that opened up, I believe, in Geisler's Plaza, which is yes, which is I hear is very cool and something that our kids can go check out. It's more like card gaming than computer gaming.
It's cards, and it's also like the little figures and dragon.
And Sunday, December 1st, they're having a stuffer cruiser at East Windsor Walmart.
For the Booster Club, Purse Bingo is coming up. That's, what is it, November 10th. So, some of us are having a table. So, anybody else wants to join? And this weekend and next weekend is the Scouts food drive, Cub Scouts. So this weekend is the bag drop off. If there are any high school seniors that are looking for some volunteer hours, take the Scouts, give them some routes to drop off bags or help pick it up, or sort it in the church too. So. Yeah.
Anybody else?
I can share a few things about Amplify. So for those that don't know about the Local Prevention Council or Amplify, they're a nonprofit organization based out of Glastonbury. They do a lot of prevention and wellness-based work here in like our region of the state. And there's a big push by DEMAS to try to start local prevention councils in all the towns across Connecticut. And so this is part of an effort. The grant that we are working under includes us, Bolton and East Hartford. And so we're trying to build up a prevention council that includes both community members, adults, and then also a youth portion in the high school. And so the Cheryl Gustafson is kind of the coordinator for the youth portion of that at the high school. We're trying to recruit students. It counts as like community service hours for them, which they all need in terms of like outreach events and things like that. We have an event coming up on the 14th. It's going to be a viewing of Screenagers. It's like a short little documentary talking about like youth addiction to technology and like screens. And then we're gonna have like a dinner and a breakout portion and discussion. So we've already had a number of students volunteer to help out and coordinate that, so that's good. And then also, it's a miracle I remember this, but I also wanted to post something to you. I remember when I was talking with Brittany Whiteley, who's my supervisor, she manages the three towns, the grants. She was talking about the Youth Voices Count survey. I don't know if anyone's familiar, I might butcher this, the Youth Behavioral Risk Survey that's administered to youth across the country. It seems kind of similar to that. There's a section that was done for East Windsor, so they do it for different towns. It focuses on youth perceptions and experiences regarding substance use, mental health, and environmental social media, online gaming, other related behaviors in grades 9 through 12. She has offered, if we are interested in hearing about some of the survey results specific to East Windsor, she's offered to come and do like a little presentation to us at a board meeting in the future, if that's something we want to hear about.
I hate to say this because I think we just do have a couple more things, but because it's 9:30, we need to do a vote just to go past 9:30, but it should just be a few more minutes. But because it's 9:30, we have to do that, right? Yeah, so if I get that.
I'll make a motion to let our meeting continue past 9:30.
Frederick.
All right, so motion made by Courtney, seconded by Heather, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you very much, Gabby. I appreciate that. I was just trying to get that in there.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Did we have any other liaison or subcommittee reports? Like town stuff to be under that, or is that miscellaneous? Wherever you want to put it, Patrick does have a miscellaneous thing, that's what. Okay. So, and it doesn't look like we have any funding from the public, so we don't need public participation. And then we would be on miscellaneous.
And just one, I did have a Zoom meeting with town leadership and CSG along with the community engagement consultant there, Ira. And just talking about next steps now that that contract is signed. So just under a couple recommendations he made off the bat was as far as our facility committee and under like the current structures of like the certain commissions and committees within town, it was recommended for us to expand our facility subcommittee to include a member from the building commission along parent either from like PTO or boosters. So I do know that Joe Sauerhofer had said he there's an upcoming meeting and that he would bring it to their agenda for the building commission. This was just yesterday. I'd already attended the PTO, so I plan to reach out to our parent groups to have a member join as well. It was also recommended to limit that group to 8 members. So I know Denise isn't here, but I will reach out to connect with her just regarding and looking at the membership so that we're falling within the recommendations. Really the next step to be done in this priority is you really need the ed specs to be completed. It was recommended that we go forward and get the ed specs for the elementary too. So if you have discussions regarding going to one referendum or two, you already have the ed specs for the elementary to engage in that conversation. So I am waiting for a date for them to come to the elementary school. You really need those to complete before you really can provide any cost estimates for any options that want to be explored. So in order to bring options forward, you need to have the ed specs to engage in that conversation. Engaging the public was certainly a conversation and it was recommended that that start immediately after the new year. It was stated that due to the election and then Thanksgiving and then you have the holidays, including Christmas, basically the comment was made, no one's going to be paying attention. So you want to engage the community and have them actively involved. So really the best time to do that is immediately starting the new year. And so in between waiting for that and the ed specs will be working on developing a timeline. So that's kind of where it was. Very productive meeting. And that's kind of where it is right now.
Timeline will be important as all of this stuff is kind of flowing.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep, they started draft one,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
some.
yeah.
So I think we'll have one at our next facility subcommittee, and obviously that membership will probably look different, next time it meets.
Is the high school trip finished?
It's supposed to be, finished this week. I looked yesterday. I meant to go back there today. I did not go
I
back.
drove back there yesterday to pick
Um,
up Jason.
um,
and Blue.
Yeah, it was, I mean, based on what I saw yesterday, I wasn't, confident that it was going to be done. I mean, they're moving, don't get me wrong. And I've never put together tracks, so it very well may be that it's done. But based on knowing that, I didn't see, the red surface on top, which I know is, one, and then it needs to be painted based on, and that was yesterday. Maybe that changed today.
Yeah.
But originally they were on track, so I don't know if there was a delay, but it seems like it's going to be done relatively. Soon. They've been moving though. I mean, yeah.
You're overtired. Making your own jokes.
On track. On track. All right. Did you have any other?
I don't. That was the only one I had.
And did you have?
I was just gonna say we had CIP and we did the rankings, but we didn't do the cost yet. So, we've been working with Patrick, he had sent over that, the board of that stuff, so. That's kind of it, and then building, I have my building commission meeting on Monday, so. That is on the agenda to pick the person from. To be on the building.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate the work to get the other items over to the CIP as we discussed previously to
Yeah.
kind of add that so that if, things come through again next year where there's more grant money or more money that can be distributed, it's good to kind of have that list
Yeah.
already in
I would
place.
love to take the credit. I will tell you that really is what was mostly Kyle and Jessica putting that together to make sure that it was on time. So they really took the lead to get that together and organize it, to get it to this committee. Anybody else have any other miscellaneous items? We do have the enrollment, in our correspondence as well. So you'll see that, includes last year's and then this year, for the first month of the year. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? All right, Noreen made the motion, what's that? And Carrie seconded the motion to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes at 9:36.